Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. This 30-minute podcast features a new author interviewed by me every single day, 365 days a year, for about 30 minutes. I am also the publisher for Zibby Books, which publishes 12 books a year in fiction and memoir. Our books are already out now. You can check it out on zibbybooks.com. And we have a magazine called Zibby Mag, where we have lots of wonderful essays and lifestyle features. That's at zibbymag.com. We have classes at zibbyclasses.com. And I recently opened a bookstore in LA called Zibby's Bookshop at 1113 Montana Avenue at 11th Street in Santa Monica. I hope that you are able to enjoy some of our other offerings. But this here podcast is the basis of all of it and started in 2018. And no matter what I do, this is basically my favorite thing. Enjoy. Anne Berest is the author of The Postcard. This episode was guest hosted by Julie Chavez, author of Everyone But Myself, forthcoming from Zibby Books in January. Anne is the best-selling co-author of How to Be Parisian Wherever You Are, and the author of a novel based on the life of French writer Françoise Sagan. With her sister Claire, she is also the author of Gabrielle, a critically acclaimed biography of her great-grandmother, Gabrielle Buffet-Picabia, Marcel Duchamp's lover and muse. She is the great-granddaughter of the painter Francis Picabia. For her work as a writer and prize-winning showrunner, she has been profiled in publications such as French Vogue and Haaretz newspaper. The recipient of numerous literary awards, The Postcard was a finalist for the Goncourt Prize and has been a long-selling bestseller in France.
Bonjour, Anne. Bienvenue.
Merci.
Thanks for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to talk about The Postcard. I am so excited that I get to speak with you today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's wonderful. This book is so special. I loved reading it. It's beautifully written. It's quick to read in the sense that I wanted to know what was going to happen. I really was so connected to the characters and to you. And so I'm so excited to talk to you about it today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's start by just talking about kind of the beginning of this. Why don't you start by telling me about your writing process? And we can talk about this book specifically. And maybe as you're talking, if you can share a little bit what the book is about and what your process was like writing it.
So about my writing process. So I write every day.
Okay.
Even on vacations. And during the year, it's quite straightforward. In the morning, I take my children to school. I come back home to write.
Mm-hmm.
And I write all day. I have lunch alone at home because I can't have lunch with someone else because it breaks my concentration.
Yes.
So I write until it's time to pick up my children from school. And so my life is not exciting at all. I'm alone most of the time.
That makes sense. As you say that, I think it's true. If I let the writing get interrupted, then you're done for the day.
Something's broken.
Yes. Oh, that makes sense. So when you set out to write this book, tell me about, I think, let's start at the beginning. I'm just looking back. I had sent you a list of questions, which is not normal for me, which I loved, but I want to talk about a little bit, how did you become a writer originally? Because you have written so many books and articles and lots of different projects and a lot for the screen as well. So tell me how you became a writer.
That's a beautiful, but a very difficult question.
Ooh, okay.
Because I am not sure if I have become a writer.
That's so French of you.
I ask myself this question every day. But let's say that when I was a child, it was my dream. Okay, why? It's a mystery. You have little girls who dream of becoming a singer, a doctor, an astronaut, I don't know, an actress. But me, I wanted to become a writer. And I didn't know why, but I tried to understand this mystery. And I discovered when I was writing the postcard that my great aunt, Noemi, who was murdered by the Nazis when she was 19, I discovered that she wanted to be a writer. And I didn't know that because I wrote a lot of books before I discovered this link with my great aunt.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, perhaps it's like an invisible transmission. Maybe this young girl has survived within me, and the fever of writing has been passed down through the family tree and in the sap of the tree beyond death. So maybe that's why I wanted to be a writer.
That is beautiful. That brought tears to my eyes. What a beautiful way to think about our lives as part of the lives that have come before us.
Yes, I truly believe in that.
Yes, the sap of the family tree. I have never heard it put that way. Beautiful. Well, I think that you were meant to be a writer, and I'm so glad that you are. The postcard, too, just to give people a sense, is about an anonymous postcard that you received, or that your mother received in 2003, correct?
Exactly.
And it had 4 names: Ephraim, Noemi, Jacques, Emma. Yes, I moved them around, I just realized. But those were, just like you mentioned, Noemi was your great aunt. Yes. Okay. And I loved, so really the beginning of the book is you following that. Now, your mother had started a lot of research about your family, and then building on that research, you began to go through and create the story that became the postcard. So it is so impressive, the scope of your research. I was so impressed by the detail and the different documents that you unearthed, which were both so incredible and so awful to read and understand the complicity and all the pieces that went through. Right. We read about World War II often, but I think every time it is fresh how awful it was. And so I think reading the postcard, I really appreciated the research. Let's talk about that a little bit. So your mother had begun a lot of this research. What was one of the most surprising things you discovered in your research?
It's hard to answer.
Yes.
Because I don't want to spoil the book.
Of course. Okay. So
Yes.
one of the supposed, okay,
Yeah.
I understand.
Because,
Yes.
Because during my investigation, during the investigation I made with my mother,
Yes.
she's the heroine of the book.
Yes.
And with a private detective, we had extraordinary adventures.
Yes.
And it was so extraordinary that I couldn't have made it up. And that's why I want you and your listener to know that I don't want to spoil, but I want you to know that everything is true. And I didn't invented anything, even though it's written in the style of a novel. Everything as I discovered is the truth, but I want the readers to discover it.
Yes. Well, it's so beautifully done. I can't tell you how many times. So when I read a book,
yes,
I don't read the back. I don't read the description. I just open it. And so when Zibby had talked about this book, I went, purchased my copy and started reading. And there were so many times that I looked back and thought, is this a novel? Because this did happen. So it reads so amazingly well that way. And the suspense of it and the way you put the different books, it's so good. So I agree with you. Let's not spoil anything, but it is so good and such a page turner. I loved it.
Thank you.
So you have a boring writing process, apparently, which is lovely. I love hearing about boring because thumbs up for boring, right? But so much of this book was based on this research and, talking about your mother and her being the heroine of this book, the smoking heroine of this book,
Yes.
which I loved. When she cut the cigarettes in half, that was my favorite.
She's still smoking. I spent 1 week with her here on holidays.
Yes.
She's smoking. Ways never ending. It's crazy.
And how old is she now?
She's almost
80.
Yes.
Almost 80 and still smoking.
Yes. That's not a good thing to know because it's very bad to smoke.
It's horrible. We'll put a thing on there that says we'll put on a disclaimer. You're right. But it does feel like part of who she is. I feel like I know your mom and I do see her with a cigarette. So but yes, no one start smoking. Everyone knows. Yes, we have said it. Anne and I have let you know it's bad for you. Don't do it. Lung charring, as you say it. How was your relationship with your mother over the course of the book and the research for it? Did it change your relationship with her?
Yes, the relationship with my mother has changed because we both embarked on this adventure that concerned us, really. And during, 3-4 years, we no longer talked about children and vacations or organizing family meals. I'm a little bit exaggerating, but
of course,
we didn't care anymore. We just talking always about the investigation. So we were like two childs, not like a mother and a daughter, but like kids playing a game. And so it was really amazing. And after, when the book came out in France, I wanted to do all the promotion with her. I asked the journalists, the booksellers, do you agree? I come with my mother. And it was fantastic because I was always with her. And it was so good. And she cooked me when we had to take a train to go, in another city. She cooked me little sandwiches like when I was a little girl. It was so good. It was so funny to share all these moments with her because she's quirky and she's funny and she always says unexpected things, even with journalists. I don't know what she will answer. I'm always a little bit afraid. And and she's also extremely bright. It was really a joy to capture her in my book. So our relationship didn't change really, but it was so good to be with her.
Yes. It sounds like it was a gift.
I told her, Mom, it's hard to be a heroine in a book. So she read the book when I was writing it.
Okay.
And something like every 50 pages, I told her, okay, if you want to change something, to change a word or something, you can. It was really a work together.
Yes. Collaboration.
We were a team.
Yes. Oh, well, you feel that reading it, that you're both excited, and that makes sense that you were like children together. Just look at what I found.
And we were always also arguing.
Yes.
And that's funny because she said to me, no, you're wrong. No, I'm sure that's a good way. So it was really funny.
And you wrote a scene or a few scenes in the book where you were convinced that you knew who had sent the postcard.
Yes.
And she said, no.
No.
You said, why? And no, just no. I know. Yeah. That sounds very much like a mom.
And she's always right.
Yes. Oh, moms are always right. right? Now we can be those people for our own children.
Exactly.
That is really neat to hear. And we're talking about the fun part of the exploration. But for you, you were writing about very heavy, sad topics.
Yes.
So how did you care for yourself, especially since you write alone and, you're alone for a large chunk of the day. So how did you care for yourself when things were too much or felt too heavy?
Oh, yes. I cried every day while writing some chapters of the book.
Yes.
Because it was too horrible. And I really had a box of tissues next to my computer to wipe away the tears onto the keys. And I never cried so much as when writing this book. But it was very important for me, I also wanted to bring light into the book.
Mm-hmm.
For example, all the chapters about history are very hard.
Mm-hmm.
But after, you have all the chapters with the investigation, and that's more light. And
Yes.
we stayed a lot of fun with my mother and with the private detective also. And I think that it's Jewish humor.
Mm.
And it's had something to do with about trying to find laughter within tears.
Yes.
And so I wanted to give that to the readers and to say to them, okay, we cried a lot because human beings can be horrible.
Yes.
But now give my hand and we are walking through the light.
Yes. Walking through the light and bringing along with you Jacques and Noemi and Emma and Ephraim. Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful to think of it that way, is drawing it forward, because it is. Tell me about the private detective. I know that I asked you that the motto was, in order to decide, you have to know. Is that actually their tagline?
Yes. Yes.
I am going to write that down and put it on my cabinet. Yes.
And as I told you, in fact, I don't have imagination. So that's the reality that gives me all the extraordinary things. And so that motto of the private detective was so good.
Oh, I have said it so many times to my kids because I tend to worry.
Yeah.
And that's a good reminder, right? There's nothing to decide today because I don't know yet. And I have to know. So I'll just wait. Yeah. Will you tell me, what is that motto in French?
Il est nécessaire de savoir pour avancer.
Ah, savoir pour avancer. Oh, why does everything sound so much better in French? Oh, c'est meilleur in French. C'est tout meilleur. I love that, savoir. So when we talk about that, so you didn't make that fact up, and you also didn't make up the fact that a person's handwriting changes every 5 years?
Yes.
That is incredible.
Yes. So that's what graphologists say.
Yes.
And I learned a lot of things about graphology from this graphologist named Jesus in the book. So one more time,
I love that.
couldn't made it up.
Really?
And this guy works in France with the courts to analyze the handwriting of anonymous letters during trials. And so that's why I wanted to work with him, and he helped me a lot because he is a specialist of anonymous handwriting. So that's how I learned that every 5 years your handwriting change. But maybe I don't know, because perhaps now that we write much less with hand
Oh,
and mostly on computers.
yes.
Maybe things might be different, but that's what I learned.
That was what they said.
I like to write books to learn things
Yes.
and to share it with readers.
Yes. Well, you share so much in this book. And I loved that fact, but you're right. We don't write as much as we did in the past. And so that is an interesting question. I know that my handwriting, it is funny to look back though. I was thinking about this for me. So you have worked, we're going back to one of my earlier questions, but you've worked on a variety of writing projects. So you write to learn things and to share them, but you've also done a lot for the screen.
Yes.
So what are the main differences for you when you're writing a screenplay or novel? It is very different. Okay, tell me.
Because one is freedom and solely freedom, and the other is constraint, solely constraint.
Okay.
And I love both. But when you write a script for movies or series, but especially a series script, you have to adhere to rules, to the screenwriting rules. For example, you have to have a twist after a certain number of minutes. You have to put a cliffhanger after a certain number of minutes. You have to put a plot development after a certain number of minutes. So it's like a game of chess. Each move corresponds to a rule of the game when you write for series. And for example, you also have to know very well the economic cost of what you are writing.
Interesting.
Because if you are hired as a screenwriter for a series with a budget, I don't know, of $1 million per episode, which isn't much. And if you deliver a script to your producer with, I don't know, 6 different sets and crowd scenes with a lot of extras and a flashback in the 1980s with costumes and old cars, your producer will say, okay, I don't want your script. You have to rewrite everything because it doesn't correspond to the budget of the series. So that's why I say it's like playing chess.
Right.
You have to know everything, all the rules.
Yes.
If you don't know, you cannot play. On the contrary, in a book, you can do everything. It's freedom, total freedom. You can go to the moon. You can go everywhere you want. You can have a scene with 1 million people. It doesn't cost anything. It's really freedom. So that's why I like the boss, because I like freedom. I like constraint. But if I had to choose, and if someone told me you have to choose between books or scripts, for me, the choice is very clear. I'm a novelist. I'm a writer of books, and that's not a question for me.
That is a beautiful and really good way to put it. I'd never thought that, but it's true. If I turned in a script with 8 helicopters crashing, maybe, I don't know, then they would be very angry. Yes. Good point. I'm so glad. Good to know you are a novelist, and you are a novelist who enjoys writing scripts occasionally.
Exactly.
There you go. What has been interesting for you about the American reception of this book versus the French? Or have you gotten there yet? Do you feel like you have an answer to that question?
Yes, and that's why that's fascinating when you
Yeah.
release a book in a foreign country, because each
Yes.
country has its own reception, because each country has his own history, and especially with the question of the Second World War. And
Yes.
so my journey with this book in the United States is really a true dream, because I can't believe it. For us, French writers, it's an absolute dream to be translated and to be read by the American readers. And so, yes, I was so happy. I thought it's a miracle.
Oh.
I was able to observe how curious and how attentive Americans were and are to the Second World War. And they are also very curious to understand the lives of the French during the German occupation.
Yes.
And also, I think that I observed that American readers were also very curious about the lives of the Jews in France after the war. And so
Yes.
I think that Americans love history with a capital H. And also, I think you have a lot of affection for France. And so,
Boy.
it's yes, it's very pleasant, of course.
I am so glad. You're right. There is an enthusiasm for stories about the Second World War, and then also for an understanding of that side of things. And you're right. Reading about the prisoners returning after the Second World War, when they came back to the hotel and all of the things, that was an incredible portion of the book. And that was, I will say, like you said, curious about those lives. That was a piece I hadn't really read before. Yes. So I learned so much from your book. Oh, I have to say, I want to ask you my last question. Yes. So you mentioned in the book, which you said, nothing mattered as much as that I was descended from a line of Jewish women. So you have a daughter.
2 daughters.
Is this
I have 2.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. 2 daughters.
In the book, I have 1 daughter.
Oh, but, you only had Clara, and now you have...
And then I had another daughter with the character of Georges in the book.
Oh my goodness. Amazing. I love that. Oh, I feel like I just learned something new. That makes my heart so happy. Okay, wonderful. So now you have 2 daughters. So is this something you're passing on to your daughters?
Yeah.
And is that important to you? And how do you do that?
Yes, of course it's important. But I don't know if it's the most important thing. It's very important, but what I'm trying to convey to my daughters every day is first and foremost to be happy and to be free and to be independent women and to be a human being in harmony with her planet and other human beings. So that's the most important thing.
It sounds like that has been an evolution for you and sharing with them. I love that. It's so true. We forget how lovely and necessary it is to be happy.
Yes.
What a gift. Anne, merci.
Merci, Julie.
This time was c'est parfait pour moi. Merci.
Julie.
Thank you for the book. Thank you for this time. And I wish you all the luck, and truly enchanté. I'm so happy that we have met. And I hope that I will be visiting France soon. I love Paris. It's one of my favorite places to go. And I want to explore more of France. And I will knock on your door when I come, like a true American. Yes. I'll just show up while you're writing and interrupt you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Julie. Have a nice.
Bye-bye. You too.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.